Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on generative AI, teaching, learning, and research. This is the 7th webinar of the series of webinars. We at the Center for Educational Technology and Media at the Open University of Sri Lanka, in collaboration with the Faculty of Education, we are organizing this series of webinar on generative AI in higher education and teacher education, mainly to raise awareness and to promote discussion around the integration of generative AI in teaching, learning, and research. So today we have Dr. Vivekanandan Kumar from Canada. So let me give a brief introduction about him before we commence the webinar. Dr. Vivekanandan S. Kumar is Associate Dean Flexible Delivery and full professor in computing at Thompson Rivers University, Canada. He earned a PhD in computer science from the University of Saskatchewan, Canada, as the best graduating student in 2001. And with a master's degree in computer applications, first rank, and a baccalaureate degree in physics, third rank, from India. His professional career was launched in 1990 as a scientist at the Center for Development of Advanced Computing in Mumbai, India. During this tenure, he won a United Nations Fellowship to train at the Learning, Research and Development Center, University of Pittsburgh, USA. During his first academic appointment in 2001 as assistant professor at Simon Fraser University, Canada, he worked as an educational technologist with the Asian Development Bank, ADB, to develop an online learning infrastructure for the Open University of Sri Lanka. So I also have had the opportunity to meet him during that time. He was a senior lecturer with Massey University in Wellington, New Zealand from 2006 to 2008 before returning to Canada as associate professor at the Wesca University. With backing from major funds from NCRC, HRC, and CFI, he has become an active member and contributor to the artificial intelligence in education research community. With over 175 peer-reviewed research publications in journals, conferences, and book chapters, he strives to advance cognification in human learning and in machine learning. He has memberships with IEEE and AIED. He is passionate about humanity plus, knowledge economy, social change through science fiction, and ICT-empowered EDI. So we are fortunate to have you with us today, Professor Vivek. We used to call him Vivek, so he's an old friend of the Open University of Sri Lanka. We are very happy to welcome you to our webinar today. So let me hand over to you. Before that, may I remind our participants, while Professor Vivek is doing his presentation, if you have any questions or any comments, any clarifications, please post them in the chat box, and we will have, he can answer them at the end of the presentation. We have a Q&A session at the end of the webinar, so please post your queries in the chat box. So I hand over to Vivek to commence the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Shiranika. It's been a pleasure to come back to OUSL almost after 20 years. It's truly an honor to be back in this university because when I was there, I learned a lot about people and how to develop the country itself using technology as part of the educational setup. I remain inspired with what I observed. And as Professor Sharanika mentioned, my area of research has been artificial intelligence applications in education areas. In fact, as you know, generative AI is the talk of the town these days. And this presentation is about projecting generative AI as a tool to help us in teaching, learning, as well as research. Just like internet helped us in the late 90s, at that time, internet was simply a tool. And then, of course, now you can see how influential internet has been. And prior to that, we have seen development of the economy with respect to the internal combustion engine. And prior to that, the steam engine. So likewise, for every advancement, we could readily see a bump in the economy. So that is going to be my main thrust area, at least in the beginning stages of this seminar. What are the economic perspectives and what are the technological implications of generative AI? And then later, I would highlight how these economic perspectives translate into educational impacts. Okay, so that's the scope of what I plan to do in the next 30 minutes or so. Again, the main goal is to impress upon you the importance of gaining an awareness of this technology so that you can have a discussion among peers, with your family, in your community, as to what this is and how it can possibly impact the community and the society in general. Of course, some of you may want to pick up some fluency in the sense that not only you know how to use it, but you also know how to guide others to put it to good use. As teachers, many of you already are, I'm sure, aware of this technology. And you already, based on the seminars that you've gone through, you might have already gained insights as to how to navigate our students, navigate our instruction with this technology along the way. So I'm going to paint a picture of where things are headed and why we need to be more than ever aware of this technology and what we can expect in the near future. So that's going to be the scope of this presentation. Okay, let me go to the next slide. I hope you can see a slide titled Brain-Spine Interface. Okay, this is an example I usually start with. Just imagine a person who met with a motorbike accident, lost all the bodily functions below the waist because the backbone was severed. Backbone was injured in the accident, and whatever signal the brain was sending to the lower body, those signals could not reach the lower body. So basically, this person lost all functions below the waist. That means this person could not walk, for instance. So the researcher in this case, you can read the details in this Nature article. The research in this case simply connected this person's scalp, the head portion, with some kind of a sensory network, and then observed the signals coming from the brain whenever this person was thinking about walking. Just close your eyes and think about moving your right leg. At that time, the brain actually sends a signal through your backbone to the leg muscles. And then the body tries to do that action, right? So that's a pathway between the brain and your leg through the spinal cord. But in this case, the spinal cord is severed. So this research, what he did was, actually it's a large group of researchers. What they did was, first of all, collected the signals as to exactly what was that the brain was producing when the person was thinking about walking or standing up or moving. Okay, they collected all those signals and stored in an artificial intelligence model. Okay, and then that particular laptop that contained that AI model, it was also connected to the lower part, the epidural part of this backbone. Because we already know the type of signal the brain sends through the backbone to that particular epidural area when the person tries to walk. But since the backbone is broken, dysfunctional, the computer acted as a bridge. The computer observed what's happening in the brain, and then whenever the person thought about walking, it created a corresponding electrical epidural signal to the spinal cord that enabled that person to actually stand and walk. Imagine you are lying down in the bed because you had no use for the lower body for several years. And all of a sudden, with a backpack that contained a laptop, you started walking. This is the beauty of artificial intelligence. It actually mimics, it tries to replicate what humans typically do in our minds. Okay? This is a very inspirational example for me because it allowed me to look deeper into where else we can put AI, and in particular the latest generative AI technologies to use. So I hope this example kind of inspired you on, at least gives you a glimpse of what AI can do for us. Let me go a little deeper what this means. Okay, simply looking at this example, you could see that this AI model tries to mimic or replicate human cognitive competencies. Whatever we do, we think and we solve. Whatever we try to do here, it tries to replicate that. That's fine. But to do that, it has to first sense it. For example, in this example, it has to sense exactly what this person was thinking. The person may be thinking about lying down. The person may be thinking about eating. It has to collect all those signals and then decide which signals correspond with what. If the person starts to think about walking, you should know, oh, this person wants to walk. And then it generates the corresponding electrical signals to the lower body so that the muscles can actually move. That is sense making. Then the decision making. How do you determine whether it's walking or running or lying down? So the model has to decide, okay, to my knowledge, at this point in time, this person wants to walk. That's a decision it has to make. And then finally, actually doing. Send the corresponding signal so that the person can walk. So there are different stages of how AI can influence in mimicking your competencies. And the next point is about AI doing this autonomously. Right now, as I said, the researcher has to help this patient think about data, think about walking and collect data, and then decide what types of signals should be sent to the epidural portions. So all those things are manually done, right? But once that is learned, the researcher goes out of the picture. The machine can autonomously help this patient do the walking, right? And then finally, such a setup can also be used to help individuals. For example, in my role as associate dean, I typically perform faculty performances. We have over 150 faculty members, and then every year they produce their performance report. And as dean, I'm supposed to review them and rank them and then appreciate their work and all that, right? I spend countless hours. Just imagine if I produce this experience of reviewing hundreds of performance reviews to a model and allowing the model to help me do a preliminary review of these performance reviews. That's where AI can come into play in helping you reduce your cognitive load. Okay, and I have some slides, a couple of slides at least, to talk about why this technology is important economically speaking. Okay, as you can see, every time a new technology comes into play, the first generation, it's about steam engine. Second generation is about the mechanization of the industry itself. And then the third one is about the internet. And finally, now in the fourth one, we are looking at AI and machine learning and related technologies like blockchains, etc., how they are influencing the economy around the globe so that there is a significant bump you can see projected for the GDP, gross domestic product, of every country in the world. People have projected it and they have now verified this to be a true fact. That is something to be believed. We certainly believe AI and generative AI is going to bring in a significant influx of our economy, productivity, etc. So it's just a question of how do we prepare for it. It's no longer a question mark. We now know for sure this technology is going to somehow find its way into our day-to-day professions. It's just a matter of how well we can put it to use. And you can see the next slide where it shows the type of impact one can expect with respect to generative AI. The very first one is high tech. Okay, this is a projection from McKinsey, which is a very reputed organization, and we can certainly believe in their projections. It says that about 240 to 460 billion US dollars is going to be generated almost per year because of generative AI technologies. And I can almost read all the different areas, sectors in which you can anticipate the type of impact. Retail, banking, insurance, healthcare, and don't forget, there is also education there. It's going to impact education to the core of about 120 to 230 billion US dollars. So these projections are believable because they come out of reputed organizations, and they've been tracking it for the last 3 to 4 years, and we are able to verify their projections on a yearly basis. So we certainly believe this is a technology that needs a serious look from everyone, and particularly by educators. I'm going to show some examples of where we can expect to see the impact or the so-called automation potential. The very first one is STEM areas. To pick one, for instance, you know how well coding can be accomplished. Someone's writing computer code. Previously, it used to be a human-only endeavor. Not anymore. Now there are tools that allows me to input the type of application I have in mind. And then as soon as I start working, the artificial intelligence backend system can help me navigate this coding process. So that's already there. Or even the latest one, there is a tool called the Devin, DEVIN. It's a large language model. It does the entire cycle of software engineering. It completely takes away the need for a human coder, human programmer. I don't know how successful that would be. It's just been introduced in a real life setup just last month. And we can wait and see how successful this has been. But I want to impress upon you the changing landscape. Previously, it used to be coding by humans alone. Now they are playing with coding that is automated by a machine, by an AI. So that's a transformation that we have seen in the last four to 5 years. It's a very rapid transformation. And I certainly believe that this will also have a significant impact in teaching, learning, and of course, research. So in that sense, again, the message for us is to prepare ourselves, get and raise our awareness about this technology so that we can be productive, we can be guiding our students down the road so that they can be productive as well. So you can also see so many other examples that I have listed here. The one about agriculture is pretty impressive. This is currently being conducted in several research institutions around the world. Particularly, there is one in South India where they use drones to scan a large field and then figure out or detect the health of the plants. This is already happening. I'm not proposing anything new here. I'm simply observing all these developments, and I certainly believe that this is going to only grow further. The next slide is an interesting one. This is called a hype cycle. Anytime a new technology comes in, people get so excited about it, and they see a lot of investment happening in those areas. That's where you see the curve going up, and then it reaches the plateau, and then people start to question, is it really going to make an impact on human life? Is it going to really benefit us? So people start to have some disillusionment, and then after coming to a little lower portion, it again picks up speed, and then it becomes stable. And this is done by a company called Gartner. Again, it's a very reliable company. For a long time, they've been doing this and you can trust it. And you could really readily see that some of the technologies that I show on the left-hand side, that was last year's projection. And I just want to point out one particular technology called Edge Generative AI, Edge Gen AI. That was here, and last year they expected it to mature in about 10 years. And look at the picture on the right-hand side. I've focused there. Edge AI, it's already past the peak, and it's almost in the disillusionment, almost on the moving toward the productive area of the curve. And they expect this to mature in the next year or so. So that is the speed with which the technology is progressing. This particular technology, Edge AI, the implication is that it's going to impact pretty much all professions. And pretty much anyone that wants to put this AI tool to use, they will be able to, without worrying much about the computational entity that's in front of them. I can use Edge AI to use AI from my cell phone or from my phone watch or my computer. Anywhere you can put this to use. So that's the speed with which things are coming our way. I just want to impress upon you one little fact. AI doesn't mean it's going to replace everything we do cognitively. And there are pieces. For example, there is a piece called sense making. There's another one called decision making, and finally doing. If you assume this kind of a framework, you could say, well, the first portion, sense making, can be done by humans. Decision making can also be done by humans. And the final one, actually executing it, doing it, could be offloaded to a machine. So you can pick and choose depending on what you want to accomplish. Now look at the medium one, where the first one is possibly done with an AI. I can sense using an AI. I can decide using an AI, but actually doing it can go to a human person to accomplish things. I have this example. Recently, one of the United Arab Emirates countries have automated the cargo movement in an airport completely with this particular model. Any cargo that goes into the airport, it's automatically sensed. Wherever it is in the conveyor system or in the aircraft, it knows exactly how to sense it. Wherever it's supposed to arrive from, where it's supposed to go, all that information can be sensed by AI. And then it actually moves the package to a particular location because it decides, okay, this package has to go here next before getting onto the plane. So it decides by itself. Again, AI is there. The actual movement from the cart up the slope into the aircraft, that is the only portion where humans come into play because that has not been automated yet. So with respect to this particular framework, AI does the sense making, AI does the decision making, but actual job is done by a human being, the final stages. So that's all. I can see how AI interlaces, how humans come into play in a loop with AI, or how AI comes into play in a loop with human beings. Both are now possible. Can you imagine the last one where AI does everything? It does the sense making, it does the decision making, and it's actually doing it. Think of self-driving cars. That's exactly that, right? Where AI does everything for you. As human being, you don't have to do anything. I hope that gives you some idea of where AI can be put to use. It's not a black box. No, we can clearly see where AI can contribute, and we can choose. Even in our teaching, for example, I can choose to have an AI to observe my class. And at the end of the class, I could ask my AI, okay, how effective was my instruction? How effective was my instruction in that sense that I was able to grab the attention of my students? You can ask those kind of questions if the AI has enough data about how you teach and how it makes sense as to the quality of the instruction. Okay, I'm going to highlight some of the key points as to why we need to worry about generative AI and how we can possibly adapt it. Okay, let me give you the why points first. Generative AI is going to heavily impact our productivity. There are several studies now, I've mentioned a few here, whereby they have shown that workers, when they use AI to supplement their competency, they were able to be more productive as long as you know exactly how to use the tool. That's a point I want to make here. Just because you bring in AI doesn't mean it's going to naturally and automatically benefit you. You have to be very careful in designing how AI comes into play, where it can be possibly beneficial, whether it's in sense making or decision making, and then evaluate, okay, at this point in time, we could use AI to replace some portions of the human endeavor, human tasks. So someone has to make the decision. That's only possible if you are aware of this landscape of how AI could come into play and where it can be benefited. Similarly, people have seen how the labor market is shaping itself with the arrival of generative AI. One worrisome trend is this. The International Labour Organization in 2023, they found that at this point in time, generative AI has a capacity to impact administrative roles way more than other roles. And we know that administrative roles are disproportionately held by women. That means there's a gender-related impact. Generative AI impacts professions that are held normally by women. So what do we do about it? So those are the questions we should be investigating and finding solutions. In the last 2 or 3 years, the number of patent applications is quadrupled when it used generative AI as part of the title. Suppose you assume that every year there are 100 patent applications coming from a particular region in the world. Now it quadruples. Now the same region would bring in about 400 more patent applications because of generative AI. People are trying to find ways to use it in the real world, and they are finding new ways to influence our communities. So this is happening. I want all of us to join this effort, and it's not going to happen magically. We just need to be, first of all, taking effort to understand why this is important, and then invest some time to figure out what exactly it can do for me before applying it in your professions. So you can see those reasoning, right? It's impacting productivity, it's shaping up the labor market, and it's accelerating entrepreneurship. And this is a very important point for me. Around the world, you could see that education is not properly distributed. Some regions don't have teachers, and some regions don't have the resources. It's an up and down game. Generative AI has a way to balance things out. Wherever there is a need to compensate, someone can design a generative AI education piece to compensate, to fill in that gap. It's possible. And many regions in the world are now considering that. And this one is about workforce demand and how it translates into curriculum pressure. Even last 2 weeks ago, as a university, we started to think about the quality of our computing curriculum, quality of our business curriculum, quality of our law curriculum. Because when students graduate and go into the workspace, they are expected to have a reasonable understanding of how generative AI could potentially help them be more productive. So unless I guide my students, have that awareness, and I guide my students to gain fluency, how can they be successful in the real world? So that puts additional pressure on academics so that we accommodate those necessary changes in our curriculum so that our students, when they graduate, they can succeed in their professions. This is a very important consideration. And one last thing is, this is the last point I would like to make in my presentation about AI and ethics. This is a very serious matter. We've talked about the positives of generative AI, but the decision to put it to use has to go through a stringent ethics-oriented consideration. Okay, not every problem is suitable for a machine learning or generative AI model-based solution. Okay, let's say that I have a problem that I feel that generative AI can help. Let's say that. And to instantiate, to create that model to find a solution, I have to use a data set. So not every data set is appropriate to train my model so that it can actually be useful. So the problem itself can be a problem. Now the data set that I use to create my machine learning model, generative AI model, can be, again, another problem, another challenge. And once I have the machine learning model, not every environment is appropriate for its deployment. So every step of the way, we need to think twice about putting AI to use. Or even conceiving of the AI solution, you have to think hard. Don't take it for granted. It's a tool, yes, but how well it is adapted to your needs, that is something entirely up to you. That's where we completely govern, we completely regulate the use of AI. There are plenty of frameworks available that guides you as to how to see AI and how it can possibly influence you. All those things can be kind of moderately governed, I should say. Still, eventually, the decision's human based. You have to choose as to this is good for me or not good for me. If it is good, how can I put it to reasonable use? Okay. There are different psychological perspectives, I should say, theoretical perspectives to be exact. For example, I can take a utilitarian standpoint. I can say that whatever increases people's happiness, if it increases happiness of this particular group, I would recommend AI. That can be a very simple mindset. That can be my guiding principle. I can do that. Or I can say that, no, it has to be my duty. This is my duty to ensure that my community has a reasonable awareness and be proficient in using generative AI down the road. That can be a theoretical perspective and my mindset. Or I can say that, no, it's based on my relationship with my community. That determines who gets to use this particular set of AI tools. So likewise, there are different theoretical frameworks that can guide my mindset so that I can choose to vet AI technologies before the technology comes into play. Okay. And this is something I want to make sure that you all take home today. Arrival of every new technology brings out ethical concerns, all the way starting from, let's say, in the 90s and 80s, computers, internet, supermarkets, electric cars, everything new coming our way will have to be seen through an ethical lens. You have to worry about the type of harm it can impose on us. So you have to do, in a way, harms modeling. If I'm looking at an AI and try to use it in some setup, I need to worry about what kind of harm it's going to bring out to me, to my close community, to my society. You need to have a reasonable understanding before you can start to advocate the technology. So AI ethics is the foremost thing that we all should be comfortable with before putting a generative AI or any AI technology for that matter to use. I'm going to show you a couple of examples, and I actually want to think about it. There's no, I am not looking for an answer at this time, but I just want you to be aware of this scenario. These are projects that I had executed in the past. This one was with the Vienna Boys Choir in Vienna, Austria. It's a very popular, very famous music-based school. It's a school where music is taught vigorously, choir music. So like you see in this classroom, the teacher sits in front of a piano and every student is equipped with some audio equipment, audio mics, and then the room is equipped with cameras. Very simple setup. But what it can do is, with the sound setup, I can observe what the teacher is trying to do. The teacher, for example, can play music and then ask the students to sing. Some students sing and some students mumble and some students are not, say, paying attention and some students are slumped up. Some are really active. The AI simply observes what's happening in the classroom. And then at the end of the class, it provides some sort of a a templated feedback to the teacher, how well the teacher was able to conduct the instruction effectively, what percentage of students were not paying attention, and how well the teacher was able to bring their attention back, how the teacher was able to inspire. All those kind of characteristics we as teachers typically gain by just observing what's happening in the class. Now AI is trying to replicate those capacities. For some teachers, that is a difficult thing to do. While I teach, I also need to worry about so many other elements of my classroom that's happening behind my back. Well, the AI can help me observe those things. So this scenario, we already implemented, we already tested, and it was found to be useful to a reasonable extent in that school. They developed this technology further for spreading music instruction in regions where music is typically not possible. So yes, they found use for this technology. But I want you to take home this one. Think of this, okay, here is an AI system that's observing what's happening in my classroom and then provide some feedback to teacher. What are the ethical implications here? What do you see as something desperately wrong here? Is this a world of education? Is this what you would anticipate down the road, where every classroom is equipped with AI that observes and then provides commentary and tries to help the teacher do better? It's an open-ended question. I'm not asking for an answer, but think about it, and you may find you may come up with something very interesting as to, at least to guide you, develop your own ethical framework. Okay, I think that's close to 35 minutes. Shranika, is it okay? Do we stop here and open up the Q&A, or do you want me to go on further?
Yes, Vivek, if you have anything more to share, you're welcome to do for another 5 minutes maybe.
Okay, 5 minutes meaning I can show one extra slide. Okay, this is a compelling problem for most of the computer science departments around the world. As you know, generative AI can now automate your coding process. This is a typical the interface with which people enter code. Given a problem, they try to convert the problem's solution in terms of programming chunks like this. And as they code, the system can give feedback as to where things went wrong and whether they missed some functionality, or how one functionality does not coincide with another functionality, or how your code doesn't work with somebody else's code when they are put together. So all sorts of feedback can come to you, and it also allows you to ensure that your coding habits are standardized. So it can do all sorts of things. This used to be my world when I started my career as a computer scientist for the government of India. They would give us a problem and we all individually go and start coding without any intervention. It's all human only orientation. Then comes intelligent tutoring systems and related technologies, whereby the systems would give me feedback. So you can see on the right hand side a whole pile of comments and feedback in terms of what I did wrong, and it will tell you this is something you can fix and this is how you go about fixing it. But eventually, once I get that feedback, I as a human being will go back and fix it. That used to be the next stage. But now comes systems like Devin and Copilot, where I simply sit and then view the problem statement. I want to develop an application like this, blah, 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 and this is the kind of output I expect. And this is the machine in which my program is going to run. And this is the interface I expect. So I provide all sorts of expectations, package them, and then submit to the system and sit back. And the system comes back, the generative AI comes back with actual code, 20, 30,000 lines of code, and then shows it to me. Hey, is this what you want? I can say, no, not this. I don't like this. Maybe change this, make it more secure, make it. So I can basically comment again on the output produced by generative AI. So it's an interactive experience. So the final product comes out of my interaction with an AI, with me completely removed from the coding practices. That used to be the main job of thousands and thousands of coders. Not anymore. What do you think are the implications here, ethically speaking? Is it okay for me to, for example, stop teaching coding in my computer science students group? Or is it good for me to say, well, instead of coding, now you all start to use generative AI to learn coding? Can I make a decision like that? What are my ethical obligations? How do I know what percentage of students are willing to do that, and what percentage of students are expected to do coding before they can start to use generative AI? I have no clue. But still, as administrator, we are in a position to make decisions for our students. We want them to succeed. So what is the right balance? That is a question here. To answer that question, we all have to gain an understanding, some insights as to what exactly generative AI can do for this particular profession. Likewise, every faculty, every department should investigate the impacts of generative AI in their respective students, law students, medical students, arts students, business students. They all have to be concerned about how generative AI can possibly impact their students when they graduate. And then decide accordingly how well to introduce or why not introduce. They can make any decisions of that sort afterwards. But that awareness should be gained. And as teachers, it's in your responsibility to find a way to bring that awareness to you and then spread that awareness to your community so that you all can make informed decision about putting this generative AI tool to good use. I believe I'm going to start there. And Professor Shiranika can tell you that all the slides are readily available to you. I have plenty of references for you to review if you want. And thank you for listening in so far. And let me stop here and take questions if you have any. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Vivek. So I think that was very interesting, and you raised some, very interesting points, and well, mainly about this AI and ethics, the human AI relationship. I think that's very important for us to understand this human AI relationship. You started the session saying this is just a tool. We have to remember that it's just a tool, but whether we are allowing it to control us, because you may mention these three aspects: sense, decide, and do. So to what extent are we allowing AI to take the full control, or so those are the decisions we have to make. And also I think these last two examples you showed us raises, yes, they raise some issues, ethical issues, as I understand. So we'll see what are the questions. Maybe you can stop sharing the slides now so that they can see you better. And I will switch on, I will let participants also to switch on their audios, videos if they want to ask verbally, or please post your questions in the chat box. So already we have one question. Some students they might have fear to join in that type of classroom. Any comments on that, Vivek?
Absolutely, yes. We did survey that student group at Vienna Boys Choir. While the children were skeptical because they had to wear the headset and they knew that they were being observed constantly. So many of them were very concerned, even though we cleared our ethical approvals to indicate that when students' data was provided for analysis, we would scrub their faces and we would not be able to recognize any individual. So anonymity was protected, but still, during the class, the students were very worried. Not only students, when the students had conversations with their parents, they were more worried.
Yeah.
The problem was when we conceived of this research, we were only able to see the benefit the teacher would gain out of this experience and research. We thought we could easily convince because we were able to convince our ethics boards. So we felt that the teachers and once the teachers say it's all good for me, we thought naturally, oh, parents will say yes. No, we missed something there. We we should have approached the parents first, and we should have trialed it with our children next much more extensively before bringing the experiment to their classrooms. We didn't do a good job there. So we fell back. We were severely lagging at the time our ethical obligations.
Yeah.
But that's a lesson for us, at least for me and my team. It was a big lesson as to where we went wrong. And we, of course, learned from it.
Yeah, you learn through experience. So I think that's a good example that you showed where we have to be very responsible in the way we use these tools, or I mean this technology. Even it may be supporting us. We have to think about our audience, our students. We have to think about so many different aspects, right? I think that's what you wanted to highlight. Okay, so there's another questions. Should AI literacy be included in school or university curricula? If so, at what levels? So, what are your thoughts on that?
Okay, it depends on the type of institution you have in mind and the type of support you will have to introduce AI or generative AI in that institution. Let's say that you have a school, high school, and you would like your grade 10, 11, and 12 students to have some awareness of AI and generative AI. You could simply do it as a club, for instance, so that only students who are interested can pursue that. We have plenty of resources now available on the internet. So there's no worry in terms of gaining access to those resources. But the biggest worry is customizing those resources for the particular and personalized use of your students. That is a big challenge. It's a big, long, hard challenge. Just because someone produced a YouTube, just because someone produced a book, doesn't mean it's readily usable for your community, for your school. You have to customize it further, and that takes a lot of effort. To do that, of course, you actually have to have some awareness. You should have some mastery as to what is that we are trying to induce in our children. Is it beneficial? You have to be in a position to evaluate it as you do it to make sure that they continually receive benefits out of it. So yes, every institution will have to come up with their own plan. At the university here, we've been talking about this for the last 1.5 years. The deliberations are going on, and we are talking about to different communities about the impact for different departments, for different programs. We are looking at it in detail so that when we make a decision as to which program should have this introduction, we can be convinced that what we are doing is a good thing for our students. To get that level of confidence, you need to invest lots more time. So again, every institution has its own constraints in terms of resources, people who are knowledgeable in this area, people who can guide you. So all those variables come into play before someone decides, yeah, this is something that I can do for my institution.
Yes, I think that's very valid because we realize the need to educate people, or I mean, aware people, because things are moving very rapidly, and especially our students and teachers, us educators, we sometimes we get confused with all this rapid evolution of tools and their capabilities. So we also believe that's why we started this awareness raising sort of capacity development series at the Open University of Sri Lanka. Because currently at the Center for Educational Technology and Media, we also commenced a short course to raise awareness for anybody interested in, getting more knowledge about the meaningful use of generative AI, and also at the Faculty of Education for our programs, our student teachers, teacher educators who are our students. We are trying to integrate, this into. We did it as a project, but now we are thinking about how to integrate them into their curriculum. Yeah, and yeah, at the university level also now we are discussing at Senate level to develop at least AI guidelines. Guidelines, yeah. A set of guidelines. I know many universities have policies, guidelines. So before going,
works.
yeah. So it's also very challenging because of the pace of the changes that are happening, right? So I think
Yeah.
we keep on updating these things.
The framework, and that's what we call it, we are basically allowing departments to come up with their own plans for introducing generative AI in their programs. But we are allowing them to follow certain frameworks, what they can do, the extent of the use of their budget, and all those constraints are captured in a framework at the university level. So any department that wants to play with this technology, they have to follow that framework so that there is some level of control as to who is doing what.
Okay.
But I think you are on the right track. You started way ahead of time, I should say, compared to many other institutions around the world. Brilliant, actually. I'm glad to hear that happening at OESL.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, because as the ODL, only, I mean, primordial instruction, as you know, you have been here, so you know
Yes.
how it works. It's essential in our context, we believe. And also, I think until we get some more questions, what are your thoughts about now? We have many challenges in terms of assessments, you know.
Yeah.
This, teachers, all teachers are facing many challenges with AI generated uh, assignments and how to you mentioned in one slide I saw that assessments also, I mean, creating authentic assessments. So how can we link these two together in a productive way?
Wow. This is a very critical question. Pretty much any institution around the world is facing exactly the same question. Particularly if you're a higher education institution like OESL, the type of assessment we are used to, where we allow students to, for example, write an exam, final exam. But prior to that, we allow our students to solve their assignments, take home assignments. They can do group work and get their outcomes back to the instructor. So all the activities that students tend to do on their own, now it is a suspect. We cannot be sure that whether the student or the group of students actually did the work, or is it generative AI that did the work and students did the massage? I cannot be sure anymore. And there's no way right now, given the advancement of generative AI, there's no way for me to decide whether some product is from a student or from a generative AI. They are so on par. So many of us now are thinking about changing or reimagine our assessment strategy. Many of our higher level courses now we anticipate major assessments in terms of in-person assessment. So students can submit anything they want, but in addition, there is an oral component for the students to defend their work.
Mhm.
So the instructor actually has a face-to-face or face-to-Zoom component where they convince themselves that the student actually did the work.
We do
The
that.
second technology is for the students themselves to trace their work. In the computer, if I'm working, I can allow myself to securely track what I do, record it, capture it, and then submit that process as part of my final submission. I can not only produce my essay, but I can also show the traces of how my essay was developed over a period of, say, 3 weeks. That those process tracking technologies are now available. So there are other ways in which we try to overcome the challenges posed by generative AI. But it is each individual institution to figure out.
Okay.
It's not just figuring out, it's educating the community. That's more important. Why they have to do it. What if they don't do it? So someone should be in a position to guide and drive that change in that institution so that there is a general agreement among the community to say that, well, yeah, generative AI may have this kind of influence and we have to proactively find alternatives to help our institution maintain the quality.
Yes, so it's our responsibility as the university community. Okay, so I think there are some other questions coming in. Okay, how can school children be promoted to lose the fear of using AI and confidently and ethically use AI in their studies?
Okay, I can give you an example that we ran. We found a way of using generative AI in our university last year. What we did was we introduced a well-packaged generative AI interface for our first-year students who are learning to program.
Mhm.
So when students go into the environment, there will be a simple problem statement, there will be a little lesson tidbit, there will be some examples. So the students have some context as to what would be expected and they would start doing some work. It's all tracked. But as they converse with the system, the conversation guides them through certain challenges. And the challenges could be about how to use or how to engage the student in a higher order thinking skill. For example, I can ask the student, okay, you did this work for the last 15 minutes. Now summarize this in 5 sentences. What did you do? Or I can ask, okay, you developed this code and you think this code is applicable to this little community here. What do you think are the challenges? So we are asking these kind of intervention questions, allowing our students to think, to
Mm.
broaden their perspective,
Critical.
right? Yeah, it's a well-rounded instruction embedded into the system, and the system is designed exclusively with respect to prompt engineering. We just created prompts and the system simply guides our student, but the path of guidance is decided by the instructor. So the student is not just given, okay, write a 200-line code. That's very daunting, right? Instead, we are asking them to go one step at a time. And we even instructed the system not to reveal the final solution. We wanted the system to guide them instead of giving them answers. So
Mm.
the system was able to follow our instruction.
Yeah.
So it's up to the instructors to find a way to navigate our students so that they get proper introductions. And it can be sensitive to their world. For example, Indigenous students in Canada, traditionally, they don't receive such personalized instruction. Now we are able to provide examples that they can relate to. So they don't see something surprising in their instruction. They see, oh, this example relates to what I do in my community. So how do I? So they can feel the comfort zone. They can explore things, their concepts without the fear that you talked about.
Okay.
So you just need to be a creative teacher. That's all there is.
Yeah, it's the way we design our learning experiences. I mean, that's our responsibility. So that's why we need to like be knowledgeable first about the capabilities and maybe use generative AI. I mean, we can't stop them using it, but we have to use it in a meaningful way so that, as you said, to guide students step by step without scaring them, or without
Right.
making it challengeable for the teachers.
Yeah, and there's one more point that you mentioned at the very beginning of our conversation, Professor Shiranika, that we don't want our students to become dependent, fully dependent on such a system.
Over.
Because it's so easy for a student to say, hey, I can find my solutions right here. Why do I have to learn? That will be a very simple switch in their mindset. We don't want that to happen. So, as teachers, when you introduce this technology, you have to have a lot of checks and balances to make sure that students don't fall
Yeah.
into that mindset. You have to be extra careful. So it's your responsibility, not just ethical. It's absolutely because it can change lives. So you should be aware that, okay, I'm doing this because this is good for them, but the extent, the manner, and the pathway that we set up should guide them to success. That is what teachers can do. So with this technology, teachers have to own more responsibility for guiding your students.
Yeah, over dependence on technology, not only for students, I think that's valid for teachers as well.
Oh, yes.
Yes, right. Because sometimes teachers might also tend to get more dependent on the tools. We get some, we see some stories, right?
Yeah.
Recently, I saw there was a lawsuit also. Some students, challenging their teachers used AI technology to give them feedback, right?
Yeah.
So such.
Exactly. Yeah, well, that's in the student's contract. If the student was told ahead of time that that would happen, then it's a different matter. But in this case, the contract or the agreement or the expectation of the student wasn't met properly. So yes, naturally, there's a conflict there. That's something we do all the time. In all our courses now, we expect our teachers, our professors, to have a paragraph explaining what the professor demands from the students in terms of use of generative AI.
Okay.
Some students say no generative AI. Some professors say it's fine, but you track everything. Some students say feel free to use it and be in a position to defend your knowledge. You come to me and then talk to me about it. So there are different ways teachers handle things. Everything is okay as long as they have this explicitly captured before they start the instruction.
Okay, so be transparent and have clear guidelines. Yeah, I think that's a very good point. So we can take one more question. I think there's one more. It was mentioned that AI can be used to provide feedback to students, but when we give feedback manually, we often rely on our personal understanding and context. How can we ensure that AI-generated feedback remains accurate, personalized, and genuine, reflective on each individual? So I think
Right.
that's with I mean, what we just discussed as well, right?
Right. Right now, generative AI feedbacks are generalized. It is not personalized. But that is something you can train your generative AI machine or model to do. If I'm a teacher, I've been doing this for the last 5 years. If I have the data available to how exactly I marked and what kind of feedback I provided to my students, I can create my own model. And then I can ask this model to pre-generate feedback. And then as a teacher, I can go and massage it further and then send it to my students. So in a way, what I'm saying is that the data that I have collected over the years, the knowledge that I've collected over the years as to how to personalize feedback, that can be captured if you want to. Or if you don't want to, that's fine as well. You can simply say, I continue to do manually, and that's the best way of helping my students. Brilliant, go for it. But if you want to give this a try, you have to properly generate your model with your own characterization of how you want to provide feedback and test it to make sure it still truly mimics how you provide feedback, how you personalize it, and then launch it. It's a long process. It's not going to happen overnight. Just because generative AI is so powerful doesn't mean it's going to customize to your taste and your style immediately. It needs lots more data to train to adhere to your expectations. If you're interested, invest in it. Down the road, yes, it may give you a satisfactory response. But again, these are all evolving times. Right now, people spend millions of dollars to conceive of a model before it's put to use. As individual teachers, we cannot afford to do that. We have minimal data and we have minimal time. We have to do the job while also learning these things. So there are overlapping interests coming our way. So instead of doing individual work, I would rather recommend that you form a group, collectively find ways to put it to use in small steps. Over time, you will be able to accomplish a lot more, and the rest of the world will look for those kind of innovators who take chances and who are willing to spend time to figure out these new technologies. And you should be aware, like Professor Shranaka would say, we have to worry about not every problem is solvable by generative AI. Not every generative AI has proper data sets to become believable, right? And not every situation demands the application of generative AI solutions. So you have to thoroughly vet and absolutely convince yourself this is the right thing to do. Then you take the next bold step. I'll close with just one final example of worry. Remember the first example we talked about where the person's thinking was captured in the machine model, sensed, and then the machine makes a decision as to what to do and then executes it, sends a signal to make the person walk. Okay, just imagine this model that exists in a laptop that the person carries on the back.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine someone taps into it. I can now access this person's thinking. I can actually code, I send my signal to this model and make the person do things, right? Just because I have this beautiful technology that made this person walk doesn't mean I can ignore everything else. So you have to have a way more holistic view of the use of this technology, where it can go wrong, where it can be abused, where it can benefit. So you have to have a much larger picture of your Gen AI use. With that, let me stop.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I think today's session has been very interesting, and well, you raised many useful ideas. I mean, things that we have to uh, pay attention to. Most of the time, we don't think about these, some of these aspects. We just use the tools to help us make our work more efficient. But there are so many things that now we discussed, so many different aspects where you need to be more careful, more responsible, more ethical, and use the tools in a productive way, but make you mentioned that having the right balance. I think that's very important. This human AI relationship must have the right balance. I think that's the message you are giving in teaching, learning, research, in anything. So thank you so much, Vivek. I think we all enjoyed your presentation. So let me take this opportunity to formally thank you, Professor Vivekanand Kumar, for accepting our invitation today and joining us, even though it's late evening for you, uh, from Canada. On behalf of the Center for Education Technology and Media and the Faculty of Education of the Open Institute of Sri Lanka, um, I thank you so much for spending your time with us today and sharing your very valuable thoughts and insights with us and your experiences. Those are very useful for our audience. And as you all know, this session was recorded and we will be uploading it to our Open Education YouTube channel. There are many, viewers who couldn't participate today, so they would like to watch it later. And Vivek has shared his slides with me so that that also can be shared with the audience, I mean the participants. Okay, so with that, I think we can end the session today. So once again, thank you very much. For
Welcome, and it's a pleasure, always.
Right.
Great meeting you all, and thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, participants, also for your participation and posting questions. So we'll meet again next month with another webinar. Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.